But when you are being paid millions of dollars and you are in a community of millions of people specifically to your individual I, not the we, it becomes a real mental problem, even for the ones who can survive it. Welcome to Entrepreneurs, the Playbook. And this is a series of legends giving their playbook to success. Remember, the fastest way to get to where you want to be is find someone that's already there and ask them for directions, but also help other people get to where they want to be or better as well. And that's pretty much the motto for the Paterno family in general, and the legacy of Joe Paterno handed down to today's guest, Jay Paterno. Welcome to the Playbook.
Great to be here.
You know, when we talk about legacy, we talk about these lessons that we've learned. And I believe our lessons are the legacy. And those can be inherited genetically and energetically through the experiences that we have. You've written a book about the new era that exists today in college football, something you've been around your entire life. But in the book, it gives lessons that are based off of a meaning of the past, this legacy of the past. And the legacy of football has had a tremendous impact on your life and mine, and gives different meanings to our future. When you're analyzing today's new era of college football, how much of this perception of the new era is based off of your meaning that you've given the past and where we've come from?
Well, I think right now is the new era is so chaotic. It's players jumping from school to school. It's money. There's agents involved in the recruiting process. There are all kinds of pressures, and these student athletes have to get paid to go out and do things on social media. And when they're on social media, if they have a bad game, people can rip them. So there's all these things that are converging. And everybody, from the public's perception, for a coach, it's go out and pay for all the best talent and build a great roster. And the reality is, whether it was 40 years ago, whether it was 20 years ago, or whether it's now, the real key to success is to build a team, not a roster. Anybody can build a roster. The question is, can you then forge that into a team, and can you give them the kind of lessons in life that will help them create a team and put team over themselves? We and us people is what we used to talk about at Penn State all the time. We're looking for we and us people. And in a world when pronouns, everybody's favorite pronoun seems to be I, me, and mine, those we, us, and our people are the ones that are forming teams. I mean, you look at Ohio State last year, they lost to Michigan. Yet in the playoff run, they kind of put all that behind them and really focused on each other. They had talent, there's no question. But they played together and were almost dominant down the stretch because they had built a great team.
Yeah, nobody exemplifies that more than people like Herb Brooks from the 1980 Miracle on Ice, or your father. And in the context of the we and the new era, is also utilizing the extraordinary amount of funds that are coming through the universities, the top universities, where hiring a coach like Deion Sanders can triple the amount of admission applications for admissions. But the support for men's and women's sports, the support that we give to the alternative sports that aren't basketball or football, that don't bring in the revenue, but actually change the world. My favorite NCAA commercial, I'm sure you love it as well. 133,000 kids play college sports, and only a few of them go pro in something. Everyone else goes pro in something else. And I'm personally attached to that, being a under average college football player myself, went pro in something else.
Yeah.
But how's the new era impacting the rest of college sports?
Well, I think that's the big question that everybody has, is with the settlement. If you go back a year ago, the previous administration in DC had basically said this revenue sharing money, this $20.5 million, which looks like it's going to be the revenue sharing number for major college football, major college sports. There was direction from the Department of Education that would have to fall under Title IX, which meant women's athletics would have to get a chunk of it, and it would have to be fairly evenly distributed. Well, the current administration has said, we don't care about that. And so most schools now are looking to revenue sharing and saying roughly 80% of that's going to go to football, 10% is going to go to men's basketball, 5% to women's basketball, and 5% to all your other sports. So there is going to be an impact on the other sports, because when you start taking 16 to 18 million dollars of the athletic budget and giving it revenue sharing to two men's sports, it can't help but hurt your lacrosse programs or your volleyball programs or whatever it may be. And if you look at a school like Penn State, we've had tremendous success. We've had 2 national championships here, women's volleyball and wrestling. We've been essentially in the Final Four in hockey, men's hockey, in football in the semifinals, and then our men's lacrosse team is in the Final Four this weekend. So we've had great success. But the question is, how's that going to impact them? There's going to be a lot of financial pressures on those programs if you don't spend your football and your basketball budgets judiciously. There's going to have to be some adjustments if you want to maintain success in all those other sports. And I think that's going to be really important.
And one of the other issues that I think is interesting to me is the size and scope of the school itself. So it seems to me that it's going to cause inequity for, pretty much all schools except for the top 20 type of school, that they're not going to get the dollars. And now not only is the football and basketball program going to suffer, but all the other sports that, look, let's be honest, I think a lot of people choose some of those mid majors and because they can play and they teach leadership and humanity and all the great values that, especially football brings and sports brings to men and women. I think I mentioned to you, Jay, you probably know this, but over 90% of the Fortune 500 women executives played college sports. That's not an accident. That's not an accident. How's it going to impact the other schools that can't raise the money that Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan can raise?
Well, I say this as a member of the board of trustees at Penn State at a Big Ten school, and the truth of the matter is, the Big Ten, the SEC, have been nothing but greedy. We want all the advantages. We don't want the level playing field, and as a result, the rest of college athletics is suffering because we are hoarding this money. If you go back 40 years ago, when television rights were deregulated, the NCAA lost a monopoly on television rights. A lot of the schools got together and said, let's put together a national television package that's equitable to everybody. Everybody's going to get some money out of this and make it fairly even. Well, that's not the case now. The Big Ten is saying we've got to make more than everybody. The big SEC is saying we got to make more than everybody. But that was an era of coaches and administrators that wanted level playing fields because, A, it was good for the game nationally. I mean, why are USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington in the Big Ten? Because they need the money. If there was an equitable distribution, they could stay there. So women's lacrosse athletes at Oregon wouldn't be coming to play at Northwestern and at Penn State and at Rutgers and at Maryland. It makes no sense. And those expenses go up. The budgets for those sports start to falter. And especially, you mentioned women's sports. Women's sports, everybody went and looked at women's basketball last year with Caitlin Clark and said they're having a moment. It's not a moment. It's a movement. Penn State's women's volleyball team made a run to the national championship this year. Their final 2 games, they had television audiences of 1.2 and 1.3 million people. That's more viewership than 5 of our football games drew. There is interest. There is money. There is revenue. 21,000 people were at the semifinals and finals. So if schools start to find ways to monetize that, then they can start to support them. In lieu of that, if we retreat on women's athletics, it's going to hurt those sports, and it's going to hurt us long range, the leadership lessons and the things that women are getting out of athletics. And I say that as a father of 2 female athletes who played at mid-majors and 2 sons who have played lacrosse at mid-majors and are playing lacrosse. And so as a result, it's important that they get those kind of things out of the sports that they would have gotten 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 4 years ago. And I hope that we can find ways to make that continue to happen.
I always study history because human nature never changes. one thing in all the history of the NCAA is the choices that we make are usually led with how much money can be made. And you make a great point, and obviously it was in the past made about women's soccer and the Olympic interest, following and success of women's soccer, but yet the money wasn't flowing in the right direction. Now, I see your book behind you. Can you grab that for me real quick?
Yep.
Um, there are parallels in sports to life. And one of the things I like about this all out pressure of college football in the new era, um, is that there's a lot of pressure in a lot of new eras taking place because of media, because of content, not just with the backdrop of sports, but in all aspects of college, in all aspects of businesses. And we see how the geopolitical atmosphere and environment can change a way things are run because of where the dollars flow. What are some of the parallel life lessons that we can take from the book Blitzed to carry through beyond the new era of college football?
I think one of the things that comes through in this book that not enough people are talking about, whether it is a coach, whether it is a CEO, whether it is a a player or a very important employee, one of the things that comes through is the mental health aspect that is really starting to hit people, because we live in a 24/7 world. We live in a world where you're always supposed to be on this and responding whenever it happens. And the new pressures and the new things that are happening now, a coach has to sit here and say, well, I could have my starting quarterback leave, like it happened at Tennessee. He wants more money. He leaves. Now I got to deal with that. The quarterback at Tennessee, for example, or any school, may have a family that says, well, you got to jump from this school to that school because there's more money involved, even though he may be happy at the school he's at. And all these different pressures and all these different things, if we don't talk about what that does to people mentally, because the mental part of it, as you get people to perform, whether they're coaches or employees or whatever it may be. One of the things we used to talk about when I was coaching was, they're not robots. It's not plug and play for everybody, the same thing. We have to understand what drives people. We have to understand what makes them unique. We have to understand what pressures they're under. And we have to allow for those things, because not everybody learns the same way. Not everybody responds to the same incentives. Not everybody reacts the same way to pressure. And if you have the ability to see people differently and to understand and get them and be authentic, and as I talked about, build that team, not just build a roster, then you have a chance to be a really successful organization. That comes through in this book in a lot of ways.
And one of the other aspects in the book, in the pressure aspect in mental health, is what I call the dumb shit factor. Excuse my language. Kids, and you have four and I have four, and I have four really good ones, and so do you. And I commonly ask my wife, what do people do with bad kids? Because good kids, they're hard and they do dumb shit. And I don't even want to talk about when I was a kid and the dumb shit that I did. Part of the problem with the pressure cooker that's created is 18 to 24-year-olds do really dumb shit. That's part of being 18 to 24. But when you are being paid millions of dollars and you are in a community of millions of people, specifically to your individual I, not the we,
Yeah.
it becomes a real mental problem, even for the ones who can survive it. What are some of the key things that we can do beyond the team and the we and counselors available to help with this social silo of pressure that is given to someone who's going to do really dumb shit?
Well, I think the thing is this is, we've always, I thank God every day we didn't have cell phones when I was in college. When we did stupid stuff, 5 people saw it. Now,
and we knew they did stupid stuff, so nobody was going to do anything.
Absolutely. But I used to tell guys I coached, and this is going back a few years. I said, that cell phone, that smartphone you have, you got to treat that like a loaded gun. Before you point at someone or before you step in front of somebody else's, you better make sure there's no bullets in the chamber, because it can ruin your life in a very rapid way. So I think that's an important lesson. The other lesson is the pressures in terms of, you've got to help people understand that self-esteem and how they view themselves can't be driven through the lens of, well, this person is always in the right place at the right time doing the great things and their life is always great. That's not real. When you look at these influencers, they always seem to be in the right place and life's never hard for them and they never have a problem in their life. That's not reality. And you have to understand, you have to get people to understand there are ups and downs, there are highs and lows. You're going to have days when things go absolutely poorly and you have mistakes that you make. And you have to understand those things that no one gets it 100% all the time. And people are going to criticize you on social media. People are going to criticize if you're a quarterback at a major school or whatever it may be. They're going to criticize you. Female athletes that are out there doing social media stuff for their NIL stuff, they get criticized on their appearance. And body shaming, all that kind of stuff that comes with it. And that's, I think, the hardest lesson to get everybody to understand is not everyone will always like you. My dad used to say to me, he goes, Jay, we were raised Catholic. He said, Christ had 12 apostles, and even he lost one. And he said, so it wasn't unanimous for him. So who do you think you are? And even to an extent where, I was 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when Obama was president, I was approached about running for Congress. And I went down to D.C. and met with people. And I met with then Vice President Joe Biden, who said to me, Jay, he goes, look, the reality is you're out there and 90%. He said, when you talk about your dad and some of the things that have happened and you're defending him, just understand 90% of the people in the world know what kind of person your dad was. And they understand that. The other 10%, you never had him. You're never going to get him. So the hell with them. Don't pay attention to him. And it was great advice. And those are the kind of things that it's hard to get young people to understand that because they're young. But youth is a disease, but there is a cure for it.
I love it. Just to finish up, both of us being optimists, the top of the optimist, and trying to empower others. And your book certainly does that as well. So everybody, I suggest read the book Blitz, whether you're a football fan, a college interest or not. It has some great life lessons in it. But I always like to end on a positive note. This pressure cooker, there's a lot of good things going on because of the new era of college football. So I'd love to get your perspective on maybe one of the top positives that have come out of this new era of college football.
Well, I think the reality is this. I think it's making universities take a good hard look at exactly what we're doing with major college sports. This idea that it's an amateur model. The reality is the Big Ten brings in $1.1 billion in media rights a year. That's $1 billion. And the reality is without the players, that doesn't happen. So at least there's an understanding. At least a player who comes from a tough background, who maybe is a 5th-round draft pick, can stay in school because he can make some money and become a 3rd-round draft pick or a 2nd-round draft pick. And his family won't have to starve. He won't have to worry about, can they pay the mortgage at home? And that's a lot of pressure for a kid that age. But the point is, before this era, we had kids that went pro a year early before they were maybe ready, and they didn't make the kind of money that maybe they could have. So I think there's some positives in that regard. But I also think one of the positives is that universities now are acknowledging and recognizing that mental health is important. The NFL is starting to has talked about, they've got an initiative with mental health. And now we're starting to say, from the neck down, you're great athletes, you train, you lift weights, you get in great condition, you have great cardio. Now we're starting to talk about from the neck up, and as part of the performance in life, not just in sports, in the classroom, all those kind of things. So I think with the pressure and the response to those pressures, I think there is some positive that'll come out of it, in that we're no longer kidding ourselves or trying to pretend that what we're doing is somehow not related to a sports entertainment franchise. So that honesty, I think, is good for the game, and it's good for everybody involved.
Absolutely. And I'm blessed that my wife always said that she was attracted to me, at least half of me, the half from the eyebrows up was very attractive. So I'm blessed that some people still care about what's going on up there, and I'm glad that the leagues, the teams, and organizations that are building our future leaders. And I truly believe, as you do, that this is where America's backbone is. We are
Yep.
taking our leaders from college sports, and we are creating the teams, the we's, not the me's or the I's out there. And one of the things you learn in college sports and high school sports is it is I am, not this is what I want people to think I am.
Yep.
And that's a huge energy gap today. And it's great leaders like you and your legacy with your father, Jay Paterno. Please promise me you'll come back. Keep up the great work. Hold up the book one more time. It's a must read. Get blitzed. A lot of great lessons in there. If you're a college football fan, it's a must read, that's for sure, to learn about where we're going and where we've come from. Thanks for joining me.